Last year, when you started your presidency, you said it will be a crucial year for Europe, its citizens, and the success of European integration. How have you found your first year as Parliament President? Which aspects of the role have perhaps surprised you, and what do you think the main challenges have been so far?
I think it was a very difficult year, 2012, and the challenges to come out of the crisis, of the economic crisis, and out of the political crisis in which we are. These challenges remain to be the main challenges in 2013. That means, to sum up, all the events of 2012 was we avoided at the end of the year to deepen the crisis by more concrete decisions, but we have not yet reached the stage in which we could consider the crisis as overcome.
Yeah. I mean, last year, 2012, saw some of the biggest challenges perhaps that the EU project has seen for a long time. The crisis in the Eurozone, economic growth dips, record levels of unemployment in some member states. How effective do you think the Parliament and MEPs have been in offering solutions to these challenges? You did mention before about you were sick of all these constant summits by member states and leaders. What role do you think Parliament has had in pushing these?
My main critics, already as a chairman of the Social Democratic Group and for sure as President of the European Parliament, is that the 27 heads of states and governments have a lot of problems to find a unanimous solution. And the advantage of the European Parliament is that we, with a majority vote, can suggest solutions. What we did, by the way, the six-pack, for example, was a proposal of the European Parliament. The financial transaction tax was adopted with an overwhelming majority in the European Parliament. A lot of regulations against speculation for more rules on the financial markets was proposed by the European Parliament. The legislation process for the banking union is pending, on which is concerning the role of the central bank in this intergovernmental frame. We are going ahead on the basis of the co-legislation, which is concerning the banking agency. So you see the European Parliament, despite the public perception, is delivering concrete solutions. But this is one of the biggest problems the European Parliament is facing. Our public perception is completely different from our real responsibility and concrete actions.
Yeah. I mean, you did mention that at the start of your remit, this idea of rebuilding enthusiasm for Europe, this crisis of confidence in politics and the institutions. I mean, the incoming Irish presidency has got a lot on its plate. What are your real expectations of that presidency? What ways, as you as Parliament President, can you ensure that MEP voices are still heard, that they're taken into account? And again, it's not just a fixation with summits at member state level.
I repeat once more what I just in answering to your previous question. I could present you a very long list of concrete actions in the frame of lawmaking of the European Parliament, a lot of recommendation of the European Parliament, always first of all neglected by the heads of states and government, 2 years later adopted, and always with the same effect. Let's take once more the financial transaction tax as an example. In May last year, I suggested on behalf of an overwhelming majority of members of the European Parliament the FTT to the Council, and Chancellor Merkel in May said to me, "But Mr. Schulz, stop it. You know there is no majority." In June, Chancellor Merkel adopted it on the basis of enhanced cooperation between those member states who want to introduce it, and she was so courageous to say in her press conference that she convinced people to introduce the financial transaction tax. This is a wonderful thing. European Parliament is doing the job, and other people are telling to the outside world that they are the inventors of the solution. So to fight against this is a role of the European Parliament to give democratic accountability and to make it visible and audible for people outside the Parliament. That's my main goal, and I will not abandon from the idea that as nearer we come to the European election, as more it is important, and Prime Minister Kenny, the incoming President of the European Council is sharing one-to-one my view, and I hope that the 6 months ahead will be a moment of very strong and enhanced cooperation between the Council on one hand and the European Parliament on the other side.
Recently, you returned from a visit to the United States. How important do you feel that an EU-US trade agreement that's on the cards at the moment, how important is that to Europe's economic future?
We are living in a world, in a global village, and economic development is not limited to a cooperation of sovereign states. It is a cooperation of world regions, and Europe is a world region, the United States as well. And we are two democratic world regions in partially competition with other regions of the world who are not respecting fundamental and individual rights, social rights, environmental rights. Therefore, I think a free trade agreement between the United States and Europe is a chance for both of the sides to become economically stronger by strengthening us each other and defending our idea that democracy and social welfare, economic growth and individual rights could be combined.
And the Parliament has an important role to play in that agreement, doesn't it? With the new rules under Lisbon Treaty, the Parliament has a serious role.
Absolutely. The free trade agreements we adopt must be adopted by the European Parliament because trade policy was transferred from the national level into the responsibility of the Union. This is a part of the Lisbon Treaty. Therefore, the European Parliament has a key role, and we accompany the negotiations on the basis of a mandate given by the Council to the Commission. Always continuously, as we did, for example, with the Colombia Free Trade Agreement. And I think this is, for the European Parliament, a key challenge for the next coming years.
Now, you mentioned earlier on about the elections. They seem distant, but there's already a lot of action there. Are you surprised, perhaps, by the rise in Euroscepticism that's been seen throughout the EU over the last few years? Do you think that will have any significant impact on the elections in a year and a half's time?
I hope that it will not have an impact, and that those parties in the member states who are running for a deeper integration in Europe will obtain a majority, and such a large majority that we can act in the European Parliament. And I'm sure that that will happen, but nevertheless, I must take into account that your question is justified. There is a increasing Euroscepticism, and therefore my advice to all of us is not to blame those who criticize the European Union, as it is for the time being, as Eurosceptics. I have a lot of critics to this, to the European Union as well. We are not effective enough. We are not socially just enough. We are not transparent enough. We are not democratic enough. Therefore, we need a lot of reforms. We must do better. The idea of Europe, that countries and nations across borders create common institutions in which they find a fair deal for their heterogeneous interest, this idea is uncontested by an overwhelming majority of European citizens. But an increasing number of European citizens are not linking this idea to the European Union as it is. And I add therefore a question: should we give up now the European Union or change the European Union? And I think we should change it in a better direction.
Well, this idea of change, this is an issue that's very topical in the UK at the moment. David Cameron, we're not sure when, in a few weeks, will be giving a major speech about the UK's relationship with the EU and how important is the EU to the EU. Ed Miliband, Socialist Labour leader, recently warned that the UK is in danger of sleepwalking into an EU exit. What are your views on the situation in the UK with its potential exit?
I'm looking with the same tension and expectation to this announced speech of David Cameron. I belong to those who wish the United Kingdom as a full-fledged member of the European Union, taking part in all the policies of the European Union and not opting out every day a little bit more. And therefore, I can only repeat that I wish the United Kingdom as a full-fledged member, but it's up to the British people to decide at the end if they want to be a full member of the European Union or not. And already the rhetoric is very astonishing. I listened to the United States Secretary of State yesterday, what he said to David Cameron. I hope that David Cameron will listen carefully to what his American friends advise him. Nevertheless, I take note that they are discussing about the relationship of the United Kingdom with the European Union. United Kingdom is a member of the European Union. You can't have relationship with yourself, or you consider yourself not as a member. And therefore, I repeat, I want to see the United Kingdom as a full-fledged and an active member of an integrated Europe. But it's up to the Brits to decide about this.
Now, the role of Parliament's President means you wear different hats, I suppose. You have to represent the whole of the Parliament. How difficult personally do you find this aspect of your role, or is it difficult at all? I mean, you do have a reputation as a passionate social democrat politician. Do you sometimes have to bite your tongue and say, okay, I've got to put this face on? How difficult is that for you? We've heard you in the past being very passionate about politics. Does that have to take a back step?
To be a passionate politician is my character. I can't change it because I have another duty. But I must take into account that the content of my job as President of the Parliament is a different one than the job of a group leader. To answer to your precise question, it's impossible to represent everybody. I must represent the institution, and my representation of the institution is based always respecting the wish and the will of the majority of the House. And that was the line I followed the whole year. And if you listen to me and read my speeches in the Council or in the Parliament, this is always reflecting the position, the majority position of the European Parliament. But I'm quite clear, it is for me absolutely impossible to represent all the opinions in the House, because there are some opinions in the House I think people don't like to see me representing themselves. I think there are people in the European Parliament who don't want to be represented by me, and I have to take note that they don't want that I express on their behalf opinions, and this is the other way around also the case. I don't want to be obliged to express, for example, the opinion of Jean-Marie Le Pen or other people.
Parliament President, EU President, European Commission President, how many presidents do we need? Do you think there are maybe too many EU institutional presidents? It's a question that's been asked several times. Who do you speak to in Europe?
The European Union is a construction including different poles, political poles. We have this intergovernmental structure represented in the European Council of Heads of States and Government. And on the other side, we have the communitarian institutions responsible for those items transferred on the level of the European Union. And in between, you have the communitarian institution, the Commission, which should be the coordinating center between these two poles of decision-making in Europe. And therefore, we have this tripartite presidency, Council, Commission, Parliament. We could, I think this is possible in the Lisbon Treaty, sooner or later combine the post of the President of the Commission with the job of the President of the Council, and then elect such a President by the European Parliament. Next European election, we will make the first step into such a direction, because the next President of the Commission will not be appointed by the heads of states and government. He needs a majority vote in the European Parliament. Therefore, you know that the political families in Europe are appointing common candidates.
Do you think that helps strengthen the kind of democracy of the EU institutions to citizens, to see that there is a process that's not just behind closed doors?
Absolutely. Democratic accountability needs always transparency. Voters must know what happens on their behalf. Therefore, as much as necessary and as much as possible, we must follow a policy of open doors. The European Parliament is one of the most transparent parliaments in Europe.
Okay, last question. When you spoke last year, just after starting this job, you said you wanted to help the European Parliament raise its profile as a forum of democracy and debate. Do you think you've done that?
I did my best. I tried to do my best. It's up to other people to judge about my success.